What's up, guys? Sparring and in today's Battlecats video, I will be ranking red enemies by how annoying they are. So my categories go from very annoying down to simple, and you have a few categories in between. But before I get into the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn notifications on if you enjoy this upload, and leave a comment down below to tell me what you think about the video. All right, so starting things off with this red duck. The red duck is very annoying, I will have to say. It's a very powerful unit. I've fought it, and even though I haven't fought a lot of colossal stages or behemoth stages, it still stands out as one of the most annoying enemies I've fought in those designated stages. And another one is the Baron's Seal. And the Baron's Seal, it depends how far you get into how many you beat, how far into the saga you get into. So I'm going to say slightly agitating because in the beginning, I'll move it up actually, because in the beginning, it's a very easy enemy. 15,000 health, I think it starts with, which I think is on par with the normal seal when you first fight it. Pretty close to that. But over time, it definitely becomes more and more powerful, and eventually, it becomes very powerful. So I'm going to put it in irritating. And a nice breath of fresh air right here. BB Bunny goes in simple, doesn't require too much explanation. Its nicest feature is the amount of money it drops, and it doesn't really have a negative side to him. Moving on, we have the Red Boar, who I'm going to put him in slightly agitating because in some stages he's very manageable. You could put your can-cans on him, you could use Apple Cat, you could control him pretty easily. Pirate Cat's another good one. Those are just a few examples. But there's also stages where it's almost impossible to control him because of how many they send out, or whatever the support units are, or whatever the boss is. So in some situations, the boar is very manageable. I wouldn't say easy, but manageable. And in other situations where there's a stage where I think 4 different boars get sent out, 4 different variants, and when those 4 different boars are sent out, it could be hard for some players who don't have the right units. I will say it's slightly agitating though, depending on the buff, how buff it is. So depending on the magnification, and also depending on what its supporting cast is. Another slightly agitating is Berserk Corey, and he's only agitating if you don't have a wave blocker. Notoriously, Octopus Cat, who is pretty much a direct counter to him if you have other units, because he will protect all of your army, and as long as you have the proper units to take Berserk Corey out, Octopus Cat will greatly assist you. If you're early in the game, you're probably afraid of him because of a million health and the shockwave and all those things. So make sure to invest in Octopus Cat. He will help you throughout the game, whether you're fighting against floating enemies or enemies with a shockwave. So slightly agitating, has a lot of health, but definitely drops down in difficulty when you get Octopus Cat and other strong anti-red units. Cappy, irritating. Cappy, I wouldn't put it in very annoying, only because 1 or 2 are typically sent out at once. But there have been many instances where Cappy has made me upset, and that's because Cappy, when he critical hits, does a ton of damage. I don't think I could come up with a number off the top of my head, but it's enough to one-shot a lot of your units. I will put it that way. Um, when there's 1 or 2, it's quite manageable. It's like a boar, you could take care of it pretty simply with some support, and eventually it'll die. It does linger for a while. It has a lot of health, but if more than maybe 4 or 5 get sent out at once, that's a lot to handle. So definitely an irritating unit. Not much doubt about that, in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think about that ranking. I think Cappy's irritating. Next, we have what's this? Jackrabbit. Yeah, Jackrabbit is slightly agitating. Has a good amount of stats actually. It reminds me of a Relic Doge, but just by thinking about that, it kind of makes me want to put him up to irritating. I don't know. I think you can go in either one. Yeah, I'll leave him in here. Maybe. I don't know. I'll close my eyes, whichever place it lands in. Let's see. Oh, I'm just going to put him in irritating. I think, even at 100% health, 100% magnification, he has 65,000 health, and that's quite a bit for a meat shield. And it's not uncommon to find him in a magnified state with multiple 100% magnification. So giving a meat shield hundreds of thousands of health and 4 or 5 digit DPS, it's hardly a meat shield. It's almost a frontline attacker at that point. So I'll put him in irritating. Now, Pegasus or whatever, very annoying. In fact, this is almost like a difficulty tier list, which I have done, and I will leave that difficulty in a card for the video if you'd like to check that out. I'll be a little notification in the top right corner of the video screen, but I did do a red ranking, maybe a different list, but I did rank some red enemies previously. This is more of how annoying they are. But Pegasus, millions of health, mini wave, and it's everything you hate about every other horse combined, pretty much. And then with the wave, I mean, this is one of the strongest red bosses in the game, and I feel confident to say that. I think it has 1.6 million health at 100% magnification, and that number alone is a lot. I mean, that gives him the health of a relic bun bun, to put that into perspective. And as I said, he has medium range, so you can't use a lot of rushers against him or also die. And anything that's further back can get obliterated by his mini wave. So definitely one of the most annoying units. And I definitely think he's more annoying than this duck. Yep, right there. And if this was a strength list, he'd be ranked on the top of that as well. Hacky, you know, if I was in earlier game, I would have said Hacky was very annoying. But over time, Hacky becomes more and more easy because you have Awakened Muhammad Cat at a high level. Can, you have Bullet Train, all of these great units that are amazing at killing Cappy. Even Fishman, some of those types of units. And yeah, he's agitating at times. There's some stages where there's very strong frontliners and you have trouble getting to him. And in those stages, he's absolutely irritating. But in most situations, I feel you could eliminate him effectively with pretty basic units. So I'll keep him slightly agitating. No doubt that if you're in early game or middle game, he's annoying. But as soon as you get into that Uncanny Legend territory, you should be well enough equipped to deal with him 90% of the time without him making you pull your hair out of your head. Next, we have JK Bun Bun, and yeah, slightly agitating. I don't think he's too annoying. And by the time you beat the first Bun Bun, you know how to fight most of the other ones until you get to Eldritch Forces and whatever, Then that's a different story, but most of the basic Bun Buns are very easy to beat once you beat the first one. Or at least a lot easier. I won't say very easy, but a lot easier. Next, we have this Chameleon, and honestly, mild. It doesn't do a whole lot. 1.6 million health or something like that. Somewhere around there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it also has similar health to the Relic Bun Bun. Maybe even the same, I think. But not a lot of DPS at all, not a lot of damage. And you really just have to rush it. Awaken Muhammad Cat is great against him. Can's great. Bullet Train's great. They're really not that hard of a unit. Despite the high health and the high range, it doesn't offer a whole lot else, and it doesn't have any procs. So that will be one of the most mild bosses on the stage. Joining him is Neandum. And Neandum, besides range, doesn't have a lot to offer either. Some damage when you're when you're less experienced in the game, the amount of damage he does might hurt your units. You'll also be missing a lot of treasures. But later in game, he's almost never a problem. You might feel his hits once in a while, so I think he goes into mild. Okame, very annoying, but I feel once you beat the normal hyena, then Hyena, I think his name is. But yeah, once you beat him, you kind of have a gist of how they behave and act. So you at least have that, but it does not subtract from the fact that he's very powerful. And yeah, I get it. If you have Pai or whatever, all power to you. You could probably destroy any of these bosses. But if you don't have Pai like me, and not just me, but a lot of other people as well, then you might struggle mightily. Let's see. The Rhino depends on magnification, but for the most part, I'm going to say it's mild. The Rhino has a lot of health. But if you're in early game, I could see the point where, it doesn't die, and that gets annoying. And I understand that. But later in the game, I'll just put them in slightly agitating. I want to include my beginners here. And I did make a beginner guide, by the way, but it didn't get a lot of views. So I'm going to imagine that a lot of my audience is later in the game. So, yeah, I will put it in slightly agitating. But if you are a beginner, I still want to represent what you guys believe in. as a former beginner myself. And yeah, if you're having trouble killing them, I would recommend you investing in some anti-red units or just pushing them behind the base because they're very slow and they will likely not pick up their speed and rush you. So Pirate Cats, and if you don't want to go that route, then I would definitely recommend something like Can or if you're in the later game, Courier. All right, Professor A. Professor A is actually he's in between irritating and slightly agitating. So I'm going to make up a category of annoying. And I think he's annoying because not only does he slow your units, but he does a lot of damage for his range and his DPS. Is what I meant. He has a lot of DPS for his range. He attacks very quickly, and he could easily perma slow your units and lot them. And Awaken Muhammad Cat is pretty much effectiveless against him because of that factor. And a lot of other melees are too. So you need to outrange him, or you need some red units that could resist. So Sushi Cat's great. Um, but yeah, he might just go into irritating. I honestly dislike him a lot. I'm gonna move him up to irritating. I really think he's an annoying unit, and for the first time that you fight him in the game, you're still pretty early, so that's gonna be a bit of a shock when you play him for the first time. All right, Reynard. Reynard. Let me try to think of Reynard. If I remember correctly, Reynard is has a surge attack, and the surge attack could be quite annoying, but it also has pretty low stats in terms of health. So try to kill it, but it has a lot of range. So if it attacks, that might be bad. Just look at the upside though that the stats aren't high per se. So I mean, it should be somewhat manageable. No doubt annoying in its own right though, because as I said, the long range paired with a surge could be troubling. All right, next we have this pig, and that just goes in simple. I don't think anybody's really strolling on one of these pigs before. If anything, it's free cash. Irritating, Cyclone. When you get later in the game, it's not so bad. But if you're not in middle game, if you're sooner than middle game, it's probably one of the hardest Cyclones you fight. Um, so yeah, if you're in end game, I'd put it in slightly agitating. If you're in middle or early game, I'd put it in irritating. So personally, I'll drop it down to slightly agitating, depending on where you are in the game. But I do think that as you go further into the game, you'll have a power creeped anti-Ren floating lineup, and that should help you make quick work of Cyclones, and especially that red Cyclone. So, yeah, slightly agitating. You never like to see a Cyclone, but as I said, the more counters you get, the easier they get. This Hyena, it's just like its other counterpart, but stronger. So I'll put it in slightly agitating. Never really was a fan of fighting them. Star Ocean has scarred me for life from all those normal hyenas. So I can only imagine what Star Ocean with the red hyenas would be like. The seal, once again, I don't think anybody really got destroyed by the seal before. Maybe one time in the beginning of the game, but that's about it. I don't think you could really lose to the seal. And as soon as you kill it, you get like 4,000 cash or whatever. I mean, you can buy an Uber. So, yeah, buy yourself an Uber, pat yourself in the back. Not very difficult. Now, this will go on the front of mild only because in some stages, it sounds like 6 of them out of the first 10 seconds and you don't have any cash. That gets annoying, but that happens so rarely that I can't make it, the sole ranking. I can't make a minority situation, so prevalent on this list. So when that happens, it's definitely irritating. It would go in the irritating category, that one scenario, but that one scenario doesn't happen very often. And what does happen often is that a few shy boys accompany a boss a few minutes into a stage. You fight them off and you get all of your money back, and you defeat the boss with the money you get back. That's what tends to happen, so pretty mild. Depends on how many are sent out and when, though. Those are definitely big factors. Ginger Snatch goes in mild. Not a weak meat shield, but not a very strong one. And as a unit in general, it definitely goes in mild. You send a can out, and whatever, nothing happens really. Definitely stronger than a Doge, but that doesn't say much. One of these will also go mild. I get it. When you were in early game, they were definitely a bit harder. They were a lot tankier, and it took you probably a minute or two to kill each one. But as you get further in the game, you kind of appreciate getting these squishy enemies that don't do a whole lot. almost done with the list. We have Haina, who's next. He joins his brother here. Very annoying. And once again, if you have Pi, comment down below. But also, most people probably don't have Pi. I've watched videos of Pi literally 2 or 3 shotting Haina, and that's insane to me. But Haina, for 90% of the Battlecast community, was or is a very difficult boss. And that's because of, first of all, the amount of area and range that he has. And second of all, is that weaken, which that weaken really does hinder your units nearly useless. And I would recommend Balrog. He's good. Awaken Bahamut's good for some chip damage. And I forgot one of those guys, but he's a super rare. He just rushes straight into him. I think it's Power Driver Cat or something like that. I don't remember exactly if it's Power Driver, but it's from that set. It's super rare, and it doesn't revive. Actually, it does. It has a damage up, and then it revives, and it just keeps rushing right into it. So it's like a bullet train against Reds. I'll have to remember the name of that another time. And at last, we have Toucan, who I believe has a shockwave, and that shockwave, could be annoying. Slightly, very, 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 very slightly agitating. But bring in your octopus cat, you'll be fine. And, get your can. I'm just dropping him back to mild, honestly. I think that an octopus cat and a few can-cans is all you need. But this is my list on how annoying I think red enemies are. And in summary, red enemies have very strong bosses in some stages. You just have to be aware of them, learn the proper strategy, and know that they're going to attack a lot, and they're probably tanky, some of them. The very annoying. Some of them are among the strongest bosses in the game. So make sure you understand that. And there's some very annoying supporting cast enemies as well. So be aware. Looks could be deceiving in this game, but in that top category, they all kind of look menacing. So, use your judgment. But if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn notifications on so you always stay updated. Ooh, I need to drink water. But I hope you enjoyed the video. SpartanCat signing off. Leave your thoughts down below in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in the next video.